International Enneagram Conference, Stanford University, August 1994. This is tape number 25, a presentation by Clare Crawford Mason on the Enneagram and its relationship to the management philosophy of W. Edwards Deming.
In the future, try to find out what would get ahead of the customer and entice him to buy it. So we have up here design a product and a service and redesign. That will affect the materials it designs, it will affect processes, it will affect the product. That flow diagram shows that manufacturing is a system, not just bits and pieces. You have to see things as a system.
Then happened within 15 years. Well, the Japanese have not really applied this outside of their multinational corporation, and they have not applied it in their society as much as we have. We now are applying it in government and in many places. Dr. Deming watched the Japanese. Now, he was a consultant to the Japanese, but he has become a great teacher to the Americans because he watched the Japanese laboratory follow his idea of looking at manufacturing or any kind of production of goods or services as a system. And he looked at Japan and he looked at America and he saw the difference between how they were doing things. And that's how he came up with his 14 points. Now, his 14 points are sort of a list of things that Americans were doing that they shouldn't have been doing in the Japanese. It was a contrast between Japan and America. And so we'll go over and create consciously a purpose. In other words, you have to have a vision. He went to the head of Ford Motor Company and he said, "What business are you in?" And they said, "What do you mean, what business are we in? We've been making automobiles since 1905. And then they sat down and it took them 18 months to really figure out what business they were in and to draft a missions, values, and guiding principle statement that they could communicate to all workers. And as you know, you may or may not know, but after he talked to Don Peterson at Ford, that Ford turned around using Dr. Deming's philosophy and trying to adopting the 14 points. It's really the 14 points are not really integrated with the Enneagram in a sense, except that as you do it, you'll find out that you change how you treat your people, and we'll talk about that. And I know the next speaker is going to talk about point number 6. Actually, it is number 8 here, drive out fear. And that's something else that the Enneagram and Dr. Deming's philosophy has in common. Now, you understand you're only getting a sort of cursory rundown on Dr. Deming's philosophy. He usually takes people and puts them in a room for 4 days, and he doesn't let them out, and he won't let them eat, and won't let them go to the bathroom, and you either came out after 4 days either mad as hell or transformed. So I don't have that power, but that's where we are with this. So those are the 14 points. And that he got from looking at the difference between Japan and America. Now, let's look at management from this point of view. There's somebody who calls Dr. Deming's management fourth generation management. The first generation of management is you do it yourself. Second generation is master apprentice. You stand over someone and you say, do it exactly like this, put the screw in here, put the bolt over here. The third generation of management is what's been American-style management and still is in many places. Management by objectives. 2,000 widgets by Tuesday or you're fired. And I don't care how you get them or what you have to do, and don't come back and bother me with 2,000 widgets by Tuesday. Dr. Deming's management is by what method? Fourth generation management. By what method will you make those so I saw some added starters, I saw some readers in the bathroom, excuse me. By what method will you make these 2,000 widgets? And this is a way of not blaming the worker. Management is responsible for the method and the processes of making the widget. Top management has to be continually looking in the future to see where is the company going 5 years from now? What are the system-wide problems that the average worker can't take care of? So one thing that the Enneagram and Deming's philosophy have in common is both of them don't blame people. I see the Enneagram as a system in which you understand why people do things so you don't blame them for intentionally trying to either aggravate you, ruin the system, stop the production of widgets, or whatever. And that's what Dr. Deming's system is too. Dr. Deming says it's not the individual worker's fault, that the problem is American management and the system of management in America. It's not lazy workers or people who don't care. Now, eventually, as Dr. Deming started talking to other Americans, he came up with what he called his theory of profound knowledge. He kept watching what the Japanese were doing, and he kept contrasting that with what was happening in America. And he came up with 4 things that make up profound knowledge. The first is understanding systems theory, understanding what a system is, that a system must be managed and it must have an aim. 2, he came up, his second part of profound knowledge is statistical thinking. It's that there is variation in all things. I call that the snowflake theory. There's variation, all people are different, you feel different on different days, there's variation in all things. It is like the Enneagram. The Enneagram gives you a theory to think about the variation among people. It gives you a way to predict and think why people might do something or how people will act. And it explains variation among people. It tells you that all people are not coming from the same place. People are perhaps 98% of successful management. That is why the Enneagram is a tremendous complement to Dr. Deming's theory. Okay, the third part of profound knowledge is how do people learn, epistemology. And there's variation in how people learn. People learn in varying ways and in varying speeds. The fourth part of profound knowledge is the psychology of people. Why do people do things? Why are they different? How are they different? What influences them? Then what you do is you take the 3 things, the last 3 things of profound knowledge. How does the variation among the people and the processes? And how does the variation of how people learn? And how is the variation of how people act and react? How do all these things interacting impact the system? Now the manager, whatever the system is to produce cars or the system is to get the mail delivered on time, is trying to predict what the system will do. And if he can begin to develop theories about the variation among people, how they will act, and how all these things continually impact on the system, he will be able to manage his system better. He'll be able to improve his enterprise. Dr. Deming's theory really is the only way to completely approach the improvement of any kind of enterprise. And it applies to, as I said, anything, to General Motors, the United States Navy, a school, a hospital, your family. It is a philosophy of cooperation and continuous improvement based on the knowledge that the system is interdependent, and that if you suboptimize one part of the system, you're going to throw the other part of the system out of whack. I'm going to now show you another, let me see, no, it's not the overhead, this is this.
For example, in a bowling team, each one plays his own solos. On the other hand, in an orchestra, it's all interdependence. They work together as a system. I'd say that the degree of interdependence is probably greater in business as it is in an orchestra. The greater the interdependence between sub-processes, the greater be the need for communication and cooperation. Management's job is to optimize the system. A good example of a system well optimized is a good orchestra. The players are not there to play solos as prima donnas, to catch the ear of the listener. They're there to support each other. They're usually not the best players in the country.
We'll go on now to a talk about cooperation.
Are working in effect against each other, I'm certainly not going to be sharing my talents with you. That'd be crazy. And so the cooperation that leads to true productivity is something you're not going to get in a competitive system. Doing well and doing better than others are simply 2 completely different ideas. Victory and excellence are not the same thing. And to the extent I am worried about being number 1, to that extent I am distracted from the task at hand. if I'm concerned about beating out everybody else, about triumphing over my potential collaborators, if I start to regard everyone else as an obstacle to my own success, and that's the logical conclusion of a competitive system, I'm not focusing on what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not being creative. I'm not performing well.
That's Alfie Kohn, who is one of the people that Dr. Deming drew on as he tried to explain why you had to have cooperation within a system in order to improve it. One of the most controversial parts of the outcomes of adopting Dr. Deming's philosophy is that you can't have performance appraisal each year. You can't have people compete against each other. If you and I compete against each other for a rating, an annual performance rating at the end of the year, then I can't give you my best help because you might get credit for what I did. And so again, as Dr. Deming looks at work as a system, it requires a whole change in thinking from the American way of life, of how we do things, because we are very competitive people, we're very individualistic. Now, my belief is that this is very hopeful. It was easy for the Japanese to adopt this in the beginning because they were more alike. They were more of one culture. But once we learn this simple process for working together, because we have such individualism, we will be able to come up with much more innovation and much more brilliant ideas. We just have to stop and pause and learn the system and be educated. Now, why is cooperation more necessary now? What's happened? We worked fine being very competitive for like 50 years. The American century lasted almost till 1980. So what has happened? Why is cooperation more necessary now than it used to be? The world of work has changed, as well as the world of culture and economics. We are undergoing evolutionary and revolutionary change in the political system, in the economic system, in our social system, and at the world of work. You want to turn the light down up there?
America started as a nation of farmers and ranchers. Everyone worked. The guiding philosophy was, you didn't work, you did eat. Children learned to work by watching their parents. Management was minimal and direct. Industrialization made it only slightly more difficult. You could still see where work was done, and in mill towns, everyone in town understood that raw materials went in one end and on the other as finished goods. The manager inside could see the whole process, and if management wasn't as simple as it was on the farm, it was still direct. Corporations now are increasingly complex and abstract. Zytec is the world's sixth largest manufacturer of power supply units, the devices that convert ordinary household current into highly regulated direct current needed for computers, medical devices, and telecommunications equipment. They range in weight from 2 pounds to 200 pounds. But unlike the farm or the mill, where what you were doing was obvious, the work done here is not obvious. Only a few people in the plant see the whole process, and all the work is not necessarily done here anyway. In this high-tech work, the tolerance for error grows smaller almost by the day. Customers demand higher quality, and governments impose stricter regulations. For the workers, it is much more difficult to understand where their work fits, not only in the plant but in society as well. Management is much more complex and difficult, and one of the new necessary jobs is showing the worker where in that system he or she fits.
It's sort of the same thing. I think another speaker earlier today said that none of us can see the elephant. Well, it used to be that the elephant of work was, or the elephant of complex of enterprises were that 3 blind men could maybe get around the elephant and describe it. Today, things are so complex that 100 sighted women and men together cannot describe the elephant. It's very, very complex, and the role of the manager has changed. The manager must not only tell you the worker where they fit in the system, and they must lead the system. And this is where knowledge of the Enneagram is useful. It can help the manager improve himself and know himself better, and it can help him help his people improve. And that is the absolute bottom line of management. Not only, Dr. Deming used to say to people, he said, what have you done to improve? And they would tell how they had education programs for their workers. And he said, no, what have you done to improve? So the Enneagram can help the manager improve himself, it can help the leader improve himself, and then it's a useful tool for him to help his people improve. Let's talk more now about the job of a leader.
What's the leader? The job of a leader is to make his people feel important. To put each one in a job they can do and grow in, and help everybody to grow, to improve. How do you do that? First of all, they must understand the aims of the company. What is it we're trying to do? How does our work fit in? What we do, why is that important? How does it affect other people in the company? And what job is to explain those things. What a good leader does.
Again, the Enneagram helps the manager explain these things. It helps them understand how to relate to people. It helps them understand how people learn. It helps them understand the best approach to dealing with his people. And remember that 98% of management is people. And you can't measure this. What we're talking about, and this is why management is so hard, we're talking about things you can't see and can't measure. Dr. Deming was fond of saying the most important figures are unknown and unknowable. What, for instance, he used to say, is the cost of one dissatisfied customer? You don't know. All right. He also, as we talk about the Enneagram, I want to show you how Dr. Deming saw how the American system of rewards affected people. This is a lifespan chart. He believed that the American system of rewards crushed people. That from the beginning with gold stars in school, prizes for Halloween costumes, that people were crushed. Their intrinsic motivation was crushed. He felt that bonuses and rewards damaged the system. It not only made people compete for them, it ruined the people who got the rewards, as well as crushing the people who didn't, because it made the people who got the rewards become extrinsically motivated instead of taking pride and joy in their work. The system is so complex, it is impossible to identify who should be rewarded or who should be punished. Something like 94% of all problems or all good things come from the system, and they cannot be tied to an individual worker or an individual machine. And so you have to look at our system of rewards, and I think that you can think about that in regard to the Enneagram. This is another way of looking at how people are motivated and what demotivates people. And another important thing the Enneagram and Dr. Deming's philosophy share, I think I mentioned earlier, is the idea of blame. Now, the cornerstone of Western civilization is blame. In the Bible, the ancient Israelites used to dump all the sins of the tribe on the scapegoat and send it out into the desert. Well, if you are thinking about finding the guilty culprit, or you're looking for who is to blame, you cannot be thinking about improving the system. You cannot hold both of these thoughts in your head at the same time. It's impossible. You can either think about improving things, or you can think about trying to find the guilty culprit. What both Dr. Deming's system and the Enneagram does is it makes other people's actions and reactions impersonal. You stop and think about it. Dr. Deming says the system is to blame, or if there is blame, and the Enneagram again says people have a system of thinking, and they are not intentionally trying to make you crazy, ruin the plant, or whatever it is that you don't like about what people are doing. It comes from their system of thinking. Okay, let's turn this off and talk about what a leader does with people. Can we turn the light off? Back there. Yeah.
You learn different from one another. aware of these differences and use them for optimization of everybody's abilities and inclinations.
You develop a degree of patience in learning because you understand that there is a variation within the organization. You understand that people learn in different ways and that they are all at different levels. And if you're trying to explain something and it's not coming through, I guess persistence is required and patience.
You have to take a look at the Japanese, for example, and look at their whole leadership position. You find that it goes back to Lao Tzu, 2,500 years ago, who was a Chinese Taoist philosopher, who said the best of all leaders is a leader who helps people, so eventually they don't need it.
Well, I don't do much longer than just ask questions.
Pointed one.
If you would make it for your own self.
The best leader doesn't say very much. What he says carries a lot of weight, profound knowledge. And when he finishes his work, the people all say, we did it ourselves.
So you can see that the Enneagram could be a really good tool to help a leader lead his people once the leader understands profound knowledge. Now, if the leader understands systems theory, and he understands that if he goes to the purchasing department and says to the purchasing department, you have to reduce the money you're spending for incoming goods, and the purchasing department might do that, but then they buy faulty goods, which wrecks the rest of the plant, wrecks manufacturing, and then in the end hurts the product. The leader has to understand that he can't do that. The leader has to have an overall view of the system. The Enneagram can help the leader deal with his people better. He can help him communicate. Most of management is communication. The Enneagram is a way to facilitate communication with the leader and his people and among the people. But like the Enneagram, Deming changes how you think, and none of this is easy. All of this is counterintuitive. It's the exact opposite of everything we've ever been taught and we've ever learned. I'm going to show you now one more video here. Let's go. Can you turn that off?
The thing that the Deming philosophy does for an organization is that it begins to change the way you think and the way you do business. It changes the way you look at things, changes the understanding you have about how systems and processes work and the ways that people relate to these systems and processes. It changes the relationship with your customers, it changes the relationship with your suppliers, it changes the relationship you have with employees.
Okay.
You're supposed to control.
Wait.
What do you got managed?
Oops, sorry. Here are what we have put together called the 14 Devils. These are beliefs that we all have that get in the way of understanding, I think, both the Enneagram and Dr. Deming's philosophy, or at least the implementation of it. Can everybody see that? No, you can't see it. Okay, well, I'll run through it real quickly. The old belief is that cooperation motivates two people to do better work. The new belief is cooperation helps people do more effective work. Old belief, for every winner there's a loser. New belief, everyone can win. Old belief, please your boss. New belief, please your customer. Old belief, scapegoating pinpoint problems. New belief, improve the system. Old belief, focus improvement on individual processes. New belief, focus on the purpose of the overall system and how the process can be improved to serve it better. Old belief, find the cause and fix the problem. New belief, first acknowledge there is variation in all things and people. See if the problem falls within or without the system. Old belief, the job is complete if specifications have been met. New belief, continual improvement is an unending journey. Now, meeting specifications is what American manufacturing did, and that was why the Japanese were able to meet them all the way down the line. They didn't just meet specifications, they continually improved their processes, the communication among their people, and they continually improved their communication with their customer, and they found out what their customer wanted. In other words, they understood that they were in the, let's say, if you were making buggy whips, you may think you're just making buggy whips, but if you realize you're in the job of moving people, you'll then look at making cars, carburetors, and maybe someday you'll be able to say, Scotty, beam me up, and have it work. So it's all in changing your thinking, okay? Inspection and measurement ensure quality. It's not true anymore. A capable process, shared vision and aim, good leadership and training are major factors in creating quality. The Enneagram, it seems to me, is a wonderful way for management to go about and find a way to share their vision. That is the most important thing. You have to know how to communicate with people, and the Enneagram, it seems to me, is the best tool for that. Risks and mistakes are bad. Risks are necessary and some mistakes inevitable when you practice continual improvement. You can complete your education is an old belief. Today, everyone is a lifelong learner. Old belief, bosses command and control. Today, the bosses help workers learn and make improvements. The old belief, bosses have to know everything. New belief, the team with a good leader knows and can do more. Old belief, short-term payoffs are best. New belief, significant achievement in a complex world takes time. This is the most important one of the old beliefs. The old belief was you don't have to be aware of your basic beliefs. The new belief, you must be conscious of your beliefs and constantly examine and test them to see if they continue to be true. Old belief, do it now. The new belief, think first and then act. So what does the new manager look like? Here, if we can put it again. We should have rehearsed this, I guess. All right, this is, so turn it off. This is how the new managers sound.
If you feel like, oh, gee, that's terrible, but you have to sit back and give people a chance to make a mistake. And not get upset, get them coaching, get them some practice on that kind of thing, make a better decision. You start to understand that again, this challenge to us was to open yourself up to trust the employees, delegate to give them the best tools to get out of the way, instead of trying to micromanage, to lead, instead of trying to direct their every behavior, to give them the tools to do the job. It's really tough. It's hard to change. And, I'm supposed to be out there helping others, but I trouble myself.
The managers, the ones that seem to have the most difficulty in accepting this change to empowering the workforce, because they view it as an erosion of their authority.
And their whole life, they were trained to beat up on people, don't give any excuses, get it done, and just go out there and make it happen. And then you come along and say, oh, you're going to be a coach now. You got to coach your people. Tough transition.
One of the words that somebody used there just now was empower. And unfortunately, in the new philosophy here, empowerment becomes a synonym for abdication. Top management is a new way to blame workers. You say we're going to empower our workers, so they should do it. Always remember that top management must be responsible for planning the future, for communicating the aim of what the system is doing, what is this enterprise about, what are we trying to accomplish, why are we doing this, where are we trying to go. And the job of the manager is to create an environment in which people can take joy in their work and they can work together. Now that is the briefest introduction, I think, to Dr. Deming's philosophy probably ever given. It's a very, very complex way of thinking, and it's certainly, as I say, different than anything we've done. I hope you all can sort of see, I've tried to say how it fits in with the Enneagram. I've got a few more minutes, and I thought rather than me talk, why don't you ask me some questions and you can see where you're coming from. Yes? You know, a little bit, I tried to talk to him about the last year of his life. And he really was, he died at 93 in last December. and he was not really receptive to new information. But I think that it's certainly the Enneagram was in the spirit of his lifespan chart, and I see and feel a spirit there, and I think certainly in his idea that people should take joy in work and that there should be no blame and continual improvement. And I think you can say all of these things about the Enneagram, as well as, again, remember they both have theory. They both have theory. You have to stop, and you have to learn something new before you go off and do something. There is an actual theory there, and Dr. Deming was very, very clear that experience without theory teaches nothing. And that copying people won't, you have to understand why people do things. You just can't go off and copy something that looks like success. Yes, sir. Dr. Deming? Quick. Where can people learn more about Dr. Deming? My Lloyd Dobbins, whom you saw briefly on there, and I have just written a book called Thinking About Quality, Progress, Wisdom, and the Deming Philosophy. And that's an introduction for sort of lay people. Dr. Deming himself has written Out of the Crisis. There are a series of 36 video cassettes explaining his philosophy. There's going to be a downlink of many of Dr. Deming's colleagues and people who were his top students in October. And there are also Deming associations across America. There are community quality councils. There's a huge grassroots movement trying to practice this new philosophy of continual improvement of processes and systems across America. So if you talk to me later, I'll tell you how to get in touch with some people. Yes?
You made several comparative statements about Dr. Deming's work in the Enneagram. I wonder if you could give us a practical example of how management can best share its vision with workers by using the Enneagram.
Well, I think that the first thing is that management itself would have to look at itself. The person who's going to follow me, the speaker who's going to follow me, is the CEO who's using the Enneagram, so he will give you the example. But again, let me caution you that with Deming, is you can't copy other people's examples. You continually must look at your own situation. It's like psychotherapy. Everybody's different. There are principles, and you must ask yourself the question and live in the question, and eventually someday you will maybe find yourself living in the answer.
Well, the rationale behind my question is that the Enneagram is essentially a confessional exercise. We use people in panels, so people talk about themselves. In terms of sharing a vision, we're talking to people. So I wonder if there's some practical...
No, at Ford, when the people sat down, when the top management at Ford sat down and took 18 months to draft their mission, values, and guiding principles, it was very much a confessional sort of thing. They found out they really didn't know what business they were in, and that by going through the process of drafting the vision, just like going through the Enneagram process, you all change going through the process. These are complementary processes. Once you understand profound knowledge and you understand the role of the manager, then the Enneagram is a wonderful tool and a way to communicate your vision and your mission, and to find out what your values are, and to find out how you can help your people work better, how you can help your people take joy in work. In other words, the Enneagram is a tool to implement this theory of how to improve any kind of complex enterprise. That's how I see it. Does that answer your question? Yes. Oh, I don't think it's. Oh, excuse me. How extensive are people practicing Deming using the Enneagram? I think the people in this room will be the very first people to go do it. It's certainly not being done. No, it just happened that I'm very interested in the Enneagram, and through fate, I am a television reporter, a recovering White House reporter, who used to know everything, how the country should work, how Congress should, what it should do, and how foreign affairs should be conducted, like all White House reporters know. And then I met Dr. Deming, and I found out I really didn't know anything. And so it took me about 10 years to really understand what he had taught the Japanese, and hopefully we're able to explain it to you in a way that a statistician wouldn't. Statisticians, when I met Dr. Deming, I didn't know that a statistician was someone who had a deep interest in math and numbers, but didn't have the warmth of personality to become an accountant. And so So Dr. Deming was a very warm person, but he was not a great communicator. He was a great teacher. He was a great consultant to the Japanese. He watched their example, and he came back, and he was a great teacher to the Americans. He took 4 academic subjects that nobody had ever brought together before: systems theory, statistical thinking, variation in all things, the psychology of people, and epistemology, how people learn. And he took those 4 things and he taught people with high school educations, takes 4 days, that if they understood these things and how the system acted and how these things impinged on the system and on the interactions of the system, they could improve any enterprise. And that's what he was, a great teacher. He's taught us how to deal with the complexity of the last half of the 20th century and the time to come. Yes?
Where's that 4-day
seminar? 4-day seminar.
Not necessarily seminar.
Well, as I say, the book, a good place to start is to start really with the thinking about quality. Dr. Deming has written a book called Out of the Crisis, and he's written another one, The New Economic Order. Well, I would think my book's the best book I would have written. Yeah, it's in the bookstore, actually. It's Thinking About Quality, Progress, Wisdom, and the Deming Philosophy. And there's another book that will take you into it called Quality or Else, The Revolution in World Business, which I did as the companion to a PBS series called Quality or Else, which tells you about Deming and the Japanese. And if you call your PBS station, I think they have another 6 months and they can replay it again. It's a very good introduction. Both of those books will get you started. There's some books by Mary Walton. They're in the back of the book. If you see me afterwards, we can send you a viewer's guide if you're really interested on the 3 documentaries. And then there's a 36 volumes of the Deming Video Library, which is Deming explaining to America, the West, what his new philosophy is. 15 Devils are in the book Thinking About Quality. That's in the last book.
Did you mention the Enneagram in your book?
No, it's not mentioned at all. Yes.
But then when you talk about Dr. Deming's emphasis on blamelessness, that seems like very nine-fold, and you discuss the fact that he was able to synthesize 4 very different schools of thought, that seems like very five-fold.
He was a 5.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Deming was a 5 who spent a lot of time in 7. He enjoyed beautiful women, he enjoyed food, he enjoyed travel, and he also had a lot of 8 in him. I mean, wow. But I think he had that because he had tried so hard to teach people that he'd seen them go down the wrong path. He was a very complex curmudgeon, but he was a 5. And he certainly wasn't in perfection. There is no perfection. People keep saying, well, when are we going to get there? There is no end to the journey. It's continual improvement, and it may be the first solution to anything that doesn't create its own problems. We pass legislation, and that creates new problems, and everything we do creates new problems. Because when you improve the system, you change it, and you have a new system. Think of it that way. Every improvement you make to your enterprise means you've got a new enterprise. So you have to step back and look at it again. That's how you practice continual improvement. And I think we have time for maybe one more question. You all know everything now? All understood? Oh, yeah. I said, they either left mad as hell or transformed.
Some inconsistencies.
Oh, he didn't practice his own philosophy. Oh, no. Many prophets don't. Dr. Deming did not practice. He was unable to collaborate. In fact, I collaborated with him on the Deming Library, which is the 36 videos, and I'm the only person he ever collaborated with. No, he did not collaborate well. No. He did not practice his own philosophy, but that doesn't take anything away from his philosophy. It really works. And I think acceptance came to him so late. When I met him in 1979, he had never been heard of. Nobody in America knew who he was. He was 79 years old, and he was a hero in Japan. In Japan, if you walk into the Toyota factory, there are 3 pictures in it: the Emperor, Mr. Toyota, and Dr. Deming. The biggest picture is Dr. Deming. No one in America knew who he was. No one would listen to him. And so I think he wasn't a happy camper. And so then when he did have a chance, he really was mission driven. He was a continual learner himself. He learned right up until the day he died. He was doing seminars in a wheelchair with an oxygen tank the week before he died. And he believed in his philosophy, but it was a difficult philosophy to practice, and I think he would tell you that. And I'm not sure it was good, it was necessary. He was an enterprise, he was a person, and I'm not sure, I think he felt that, and he never wanted to have an enterprise. He didn't want to have to manage other people. He couldn't fire anybody. Okay, I think that's it, and I think we have our next speaker, and I think that the lady will come up.